Well, good morning everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Gypsy Jan, and I live in my car. I wanted to talk about mental health while living in your car.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come
It's something
easy.
that nobody talks about. First of all, I want to do a disclaimer. I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or doctor of any kind. Well, like everybody, you have your ups and downs. I think they're just more magnified when you're living in your vehicle. I struggle with depression, and I'm really fighting against that because generally I'm a very happy person, and I'd prefer to be happy than sad. When I feel myself getting depressed, I go and do something that will make me feel better. Anything from just finding a quiet spot and reading, or I will go to one of my favorite spots to pick up a good internet signal and I'll watch a movie or a documentary. I try and stay off other social media platforms like Facebook because I find they are really depressing and really annoying, and I get really frustrated with them. So I try and avoid those as much as possible. Sometimes when things get really bad, for instance, a few years ago, I had lost all hope of everything. I was forced into my car. It was a pickup truck at the time. I got rejected by family. I lost my job, and it was the dead of winter in the near north of Ontario, where temperatures regularly dropped to minus 20 Celsius and lower, with wind chill factors of upwards of minus 35. I was actually suicidal at the time. I thought that maybe the best thing to do is to talk to somebody. So I called a suicide hotline. One thing that you must know about me is I'm not a drinker. I'm not. I'll drink. I'll have, the social drink here and there, but right now I just can't afford it. But I like to have a glass of wine or a cooler. I'm not opposed to drinking. I just can't afford it right now, and I'm not a big drinker to begin with. Like I said, I'm a social drinker. I don't do drugs, any kind. I did all of that stuff when I was in high school and college, but I walked away from that when I had kids, and they started asking me, "Mom, what's that funny smell?" Time to just walk away from it, and I did. I wasn't doing hard drugs or anything. There's just a little bit of pot. It was easy enough to walk away. It's non-addictive. Getting back to my story, I called the suicide hotline because I was so depressed and so desperate. I was so lonely. I was having so many thoughts of suicide that it was really hard to function. My every waking moment was thoughts of killing myself. There were times when I would wake up in the morning crying, or I'd wake myself up in the middle of the night because I was crying. It was really a really rough time, and I was living in my truck. And as much as I loved the freedom of living in my truck, I always have been a traveler of sorts, a bit of a gypsy, I guess you could say. My depression and my situation outweighed everything. It controlled everything in my day. I wasn't eating properly. My health was sinking very quickly. My brain wouldn't even function properly. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't pursue a thought. So I called this suicide hotline, and I think that's the last time I will ever do that, because the woman on the line, first of all, she didn't speak very good English, which was really hard. I needed somebody who would understand me, and she kept asking me repeatedly, was I an alcoholic? Did I drink? How much did I drink? How much did I consume? And then when she exhausted that topic, she would start asking me about, well, do I do drugs? Am I a drug addict? How often in a month or a week do I take drugs? And I repeatedly told her, no, I'm not an alcoholic. I do not drink. I was getting angrier and angrier with this person because she was insisting that my suicidal thoughts were based on alcohol consumption or drug abuse. I ended up hanging up on her because she was not helping at all. That woman should not be on a suicide hotline. The thoughts that were going through my mind while she was asking these is like, how do I tell this person that I'm not in denial about drinking or drug abuse? That it's, it's a mental issue, not based in addictions. And she just wouldn't believe me, because I guess that they get so many people that have suicidal thoughts that it is based, or one of the factors is alcohol or drug abuse. She had blinders on this. She was almost telling me that I'm in denial about, drinking and alcohol. And it's like, I'm not calling an alcohol or drug abuse hotline. I'm calling a suicide hotline. Hello? It doesn't matter if I'm abusing a substance or not. I'm talking about killing myself, about ending my life. I guess that they deal with a majority of people who abuse the substances and whatnot, and they can then redirect them to that kind of help. So for me, it was no help at all. It was like zero help. It made me so angry that that's what she was focusing on instead of why I was having suicidal thoughts. These people are volunteers, they're not counselors, so I get it. They are sometimes faced with situations that they just haven't been trained to deal with. I get that. I fully understand. However, if somebody says, no, I don't drink, no, I don't do drugs, then I think you should be taking them at face value, not insisting that they do it. The one thing that phone call did do for me was it got me focusing on my anger, not just the situation. It got me focusing more on a different emotion rather than depression. I started focusing on why. If they weren't going to help me, then I needed to help myself. I needed to learn how to do this and figure this out. I'm a fairly strong person mentally. So yeah, I focused on the anger, and I thought, if she's not going to help me, who is? And that almost threw me deeper into depression for a little while. But then I got angry again, and I thought, I need to change. I need to change something in my situation. So I did. I called a friend, and he said, you can crash on my couch. So I went to a different town. I crashed on his couch. I was there for a couple of months, actually. He gave me a chance to get my feet under me again. I was able to get a job, and I worked at that job for a year, and then I jumped ship and went to a different company doing the same thing. So things started moving along for me, and that was back in 2017. I still deal with depression on and off. I still fight it. I have occasionally been tempted to call a helpline, not the one that I had originally contacted. So calling a suicide hotline, if you can get the right person, I think is a really, really good thing to do for yourself, for your own mental health. Because living in a vehicle, you do struggle with it. You do struggle with the loneliness. And what am I going to do now? My bank account is low. I have no gas. What am I going to do? How am I going to get around this? There's a lot of issues that people who live in their vehicles have to deal with. And mental health is right up there at the top. Now, generally speaking, I'm very happy, and I love this life. I wish I had more money so that I can travel more. I'm hoping that my job search will alleviate that. I am trying to get monetized on YouTube. It's slow going to get started, but I am getting started. protect your mental health above all else, because it is really, really important. Yeah, you're going to go through some tough times living in your car. You're going to go through depression. You're going to go through loneliness. Some of you may even consider suicide as an option. Please don't do that, because you have value as a human being. I'm not going to pretend that it's easy. It's a hard life. And the majority of the struggle of this life is mental. And don't get me wrong, I don't always drive around or sit here feeling sorry for myself, because no, I do not feel sorry for myself. I'm not always depressed or unhappy. Usually when that happens, I go do something that makes me happy. I'll go for a hike, I'll go for a swim. There was one day when I went to visit the puppies at the Humane Society, and I'll leave a link up here to that video. It made me happy, but it made me really sad too, to see those puppies, and I wanted to take them home. It was like, oh, puppies, I want a puppy. And speaking of puppies, some of you may have an animal, a dog or a cat, that's with you. I've seen a few videos on YouTube where people have a pet with them, and I can't imagine how hard that would be. I mean, it's hard enough just taking care of myself without having to take care of an animal. But for myself, I definitely want a dog. I want a puppy. I want a companion. But I'm determined that I'm going to wait until I have a little bit more room and something more to offer this animal than living in a car. But I know that having a companion like that would be uplifting, but worrying at the same time, because I can barely afford to live myself. How am I going to feed a dog, or worse yet, take it to the vet for whatever reason, even just its regular shots? An animal right now for me is out of the question, although I'd love to have one. It's just not the right time. But for those of you that have your animals, more power to you, and God bless you for taking care of that pet and not walking away from it and putting it in the pound. That's a really, really strong thing to do. Give your pet an extra cuddle for me. I think I've rattled on long enough. I just want you to know, please take care of your mental health, because it is important and you are important. Stay tuned for my next video. I'm almost done with my kayak. Probably take that out for a final paddle before I sell it. There's sad birding. I don't want to lose my kayak. So I think the main takeaway of this video, as hard as it was to make, I'm hoping that it helps at least one person. It was one of the most difficult videos that I've made to date. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate that you took the time. And if you could, please subscribe and like this video, and please leave a comment. Thank you so much. You all have a great day. Be strong.